Viola. By Ben 10. Chapter 1. Cheerful, upbeat music blasted from the living room TV as Jaylen's younger brother Darren watched eagerly. Layered over the music was the voice of a young dark-skinned woman wearing a blue shirt, green shorts, and shoes that blended both colors. Her straightened black hair swayed as she moved, and she never stopped smiling. She kinda looked like their mother. "Welcome to Viola and Friends." The first line you'd hear at the start of every episode. "Don't you ever get tired of watching this stuff?" Jaylen said. "We're getting too old for it. And don't forget how much trouble you'll be in if Mom catches you watching this show." "It'll be over before she gets back from work," his brother replied. Jaylen grabbed a stepping stool and reached for a box of cereal on top of the fridge. As he placed it down, his ears caught something from the TV, the words golden and knives in the same sentence. He glanced to his left, at the golden knives sitting beside the stove. They were a gift to his mother from someone special, though she never said who. He brushed it off as a coincidence and pulled the cereal box down. Feeling cold, Jaylen went upstairs to grab his blanket and put on some extra clothes. When he came back down, the TV was off, and his brother was nowhere in sight. He called out to him, but there was no answer. After a few minutes of searching, Jaylen realized his brother wasn't in the house at all. Panicked, he called his mother. She rushed home immediately. Within hours, a missing person search had begun. It's been years since that day. Jaylen walked around the city, searching for spots to post the missing posters, the ones showing what Darren looked like when he was last seen, and an age-progressed version of what he might look like now. He stopped when he saw a pole covered in new posters, slapped right over the one he had put up yesterday. One advertised a horror attraction at some abandoned circus grounds. Another was a flyer for the reopening of a technologically advanced family restaurant, the kind where the creations performed for guests as they ate. He'd only been there once with Darren, but all the locations in the state shut down years ago because of financial issues. Jaylen tore off the junk flyers covering his brother's face and placed a fresh poster above the two. He turned to his right and walked into the city's most popular cafe, where his best friend Serenity worked. The moment he stepped inside, everyone, including Serenity, looked up at him. Jaylen went straight to the pinboard and posted Darren's picture where customers couldn't miss it. "The kid's at it again, huh?" someone muttered. "I feel sorry for the guy," another voice whispered. "I think it's time he accepts reality," someone else added. "If I were him, I'd probably do the same," another voice said quietly. Serenity heard all of it, her expression sinking for a moment before she forced a smile as Jaylen approached the counter. "Please tell me you're here because you quit your job and decided to work here with me," she said. "Nah," Jaylen sighed. "Still flipping burgers at Burger Queen. My shift is so boring," Serenity groaned. "All my coworkers are miserable old folks with attitudes 24/7. "I see you want me to suffer with you," Jaylen joked. "I told you to come work at Burger Queen with me. I've seen how the customers treat y'all. I'd get fired on my first day. Not worth the pay." "Got a point," Jaylen chuckled. "But I just stopped by to put up a new poster for Darren. Can you make sure no one messes with it again?" "Sure," Serenity said softly. "Thank you. You're the best. I'll see you later today." He left the cafe and hurried toward his job to start his shift. Jaylen walked into work and clocked in as fast as he could. A moment later, his manager walked in looking annoyed. "You're only a few minutes late this time, but that doesn't mean I'm letting you off easy. Come on, boss. What matters is I'm here, right? Tony hasn't even shown up yet." "Correct. And when he does come in, he's getting let go. He's on his final strike. Try not to end up like him. Now get to work." Jaylen headed to the kitchen and helped prep everything for the evening rush. When his shift finally ended, he rode his bike home, took a quick shower, and changed into some sweat clothes. Then he walked over to Serenity's house and texted her that he was outside. Serenity stepped out wearing sweats too, like a female version of him. They were both light-skinned with similar personalities. People who met them for the first time often assumed they were twins. The only real difference between them was their hairstyles. He kept a tapered afro, and she wore goddess braids. She'd basically been part of Jaylen's family since they were kids. Their moms had grown up together, and they'd long treated each other's child like their own. "You ready to go?" Jaylen asked. "Of course," Serenity answered. They walked to a taco restaurant a few blocks from the neighborhood and sat in specific booth. "This was his favorite spot when we ate here," Jaylen said quietly. "He never wanted to sit anywhere else." Serenity smiled. "I remember the one time I came with you guys. He threw a whole fit when that couple took the booth before we got here." They both laughed. Then Jaylen looked out the window, his smile fading. "I'm thankful you've been helping me look for him. It means a lot. Everyone else just assumed the worst. I think he's still out there. He has to be. If you believe he's out there, then so do I," Serenity said. "Don't give up hope, Jaylen. He would have done the same for you." Jaylen smiled weakly. "How's your mom been dealing with it lately?" she asked. She doesn't talk about it. I don't bring it up much either. I think even she's starting to lose hope. But not me. Jaylen clenched his fists. I'll find out who took my brother, and when I do. Hello. How are you both? What can I get started for you today? A waitress interrupted, tablet in hand. I'll take the shrimp tacos with beans and rice on the side, Serenity said. Same as her, Jaylen added. Drinks? We'll take sweet tea, Serenity replied. The waitress nodded and walked away. Jaylen leaned back in his seat. It was all so weird, Serenity. I swear he was right there. Then he was gone. I wasn't upstairs for long, and the front door was still locked. He was watching that Viola and Friends show. But when I came back, the TV was off. I thought maybe he was trying to scare me or hide. Serenity reached over and placed her hand on his shoulder. Let's figure out how it happened after we find him. They ate, talked a little more, and eventually walked home. When Jaylen reached his yard, he froze. His mailbox was wide open, stuffed with several packs of DVDs. He hadn't even seen DVDs in forever, not since streaming took over. He gathered them up and took them inside. Jaylen looked at the DVD case. The cover had been torn off, so he had no idea what it was supposed to be. He opened one of the cases and examined the disc. The title was scratched out, but the colors and background looked familiar. He dug through his closet for his old DVD VHS combo player, wiped the dust off, and plugged it in. When he slid the disc inside, the machine accepted it. Shockingly, it still worked. The TV flickered on and began playing what was on the disc, and Jaylen froze. It was Viola and Friends. He immediately unplugged the player. Is this some kind of joke? He thought to himself. He shoved the player back into his closet and threw the discs into the trash downstairs. The next day, Jaylen came home from work. Before he went inside, he noticed a man in a suit and hat standing far down the street. Maybe waiting for someone. Jaylen didn't think much of it. Mom, I'm home, he called out as he stepped in. I'm in the kitchen, she shouted back. How was work? He asked, walking in. Same as usual, she replied. How about you? Jaylen gave a small smile. Same as usual. She was making spaghetti tonight, Darren's favorite. Honestly, almost everything reminded them of him. His mother had finally started to accept things little by little. Jaylen, on the other hand, was still struggling. The whole situation messed with his mood and temper, even when he tried to hide it. And when he didn't hide it, the moments weren't exactly forgettable. Sometimes he snapped at people who said the wrong thing, or who told him to give up his pointless search. He even got into arguments with his mother about it from time to time. Darren wasn't just his little brother, he was his best friend. Nothing could fill that missing space in him, until Darren was found. And when his mother eventually left this earth, who would he have? The fear of ending up alone sat heavy in his chest. A loud knock hit the door, heavy enough that it could only be Serenity. Why don't you go easy on the door? Jaylen asked, opening it. Sorry. Hey, Miss Catherine. Hey, Serenity. How are you today? Jaylen's mom said, stopping what she was doing to give her a hug. I'm doing great. I'm going back to college next fall. I heard from your mother. That's a wonderful major you're aiming for. Would you like something to eat? I'm almost done. Sure, thank you so much. After dinner, Jaylen and Serenity headed out. So you want to check out that old abandoned park in the forest? Serenity asked. Yeah. It's not like we'll get in trouble like when we were kids, Jaylen said. It was for good reason, looking back. All three of us, and all those other kids, got sick whenever we hung out there. That can happen at any playground. All of them seemed gross and germ-infested to me. They reached the playground. Everything was covered in vines and leaves now. Honestly, it didn't look much different than when they were younger. The place had always been old and neglected. The smell of rusted metal and rainwater filled the air. Memories came flooding back, playing tag with Darren and the other neighborhood kids. The spinny thing wasn't nearly as beat up or filthy back then. Same with the swings. This place used to be the perfect hangout. Maybe, just maybe, if Darren had run away, he left something here before disappearing. I'll check this side of the forest, Jaylen said. See you check the other. If you find anything, call me. Got it, Serenity replied. Serenity pushed deeper into the trees, scanning the ground and branches for anything out of place. So far, nothing. Then she noticed a tree covered in carved initials. She stepped closer and traced the markings with her fingers. Beneath dozens of names were three she recognized immediately. Hers, Jaylen's, and Darren's. More memories surfaced. The three of them playing hide-and-seek in the woods. Looking back, it had been a stupid idea. She smiled softly and kept moving. Jaylen hadn't found anything either. Frustration crept in. He dropped to one knee and stared at the dirt. Where else could he have gone? Before he could think further, the sound of footsteps brushed through the grass in the distance. Jaylen looked up. Nothing. Serenity? Is that you? He called. No answer. He tried to focus again, but another sound broke the silence. Something scraping against wood. Jaylen stood and scanned the area. Nothing. Then, behind him, he saw it. A blurry figure, barely visible, standing behind a tree. The moment he focused on it, the figure slipped fully out of sight. Was someone stalking them? Jaylen didn't wait to find out. He moved quickly toward Serenity's side. Serenity! Are you here? He called. No response. Serenity! He shouted louder. A hand tapped his shoulder. He jumped. It's me. Relax, Serenity said. You could have answered me first, he snapped. Where's the fun in that? She said with a crooked grin. Did you find anything? Jaylen asked. Nothing. You? I've got nothing either. She could see the frustration written all over his face. Since we're both here, let's stick together. Jaylen nodded. That had been his plan anyway. As they walked, Jaylen glanced over his shoulder and saw the figure again. Still far off. Still unclear. Serenity, he whispered. Don't make it obvious, but look to your right. She glanced slightly. Is that a person? I don't know, Jaylen said. But I think they've been watching us. We should leave, now. Serenity nodded. They headed back toward the playground. When they reached the edge of it, Jaylen froze. Serenity, were these here before? She stepped closer to the tree. 5 long claw marks were carved deep into the bark. What could have done that? She asked. There aren't any bears around here, Jaylen said. So that's not good. Yeah, Serenity muttered. I don't want to meet whatever made those. They didn't waste another second. Jaylen walked Serenity home. I'm sorry, Jaylen said quietly. I probably almost got you kidnapped, Seren. It's okay, she said. You know I'm stronger than I look. Oh, really? Jaylen smirked. So you were gonna fight the guy off by yourself? Either they catch this ass-whooping, she said, or they catch the pepper spray. They both laughed. See you tomorrow, Jaylen said. See you. Serenity closed the door, and Jaylen turned to walk home. Chapter 2. Jaylen stepped out of the shower and got ready for bed. The moment he entered his room, he dropped onto the mattress without hesitation. He barely had time to get comfortable before his rest was shattered by a loud burst of static. The TV snapped on by itself. Jaylen sat up as the static faded into a bright, colorful, childlike setting. His stomach sank. It was Viola and Friends again. But I never put any of the discs back in, he thought. Viola walked in from the left side of the screen, smiling wider than before. Hello, friends. It's so nice to see you again, she said cheerfully. You seem really eager to find out what adventures will be going on today. But first, we have to gather everyone else. Come on out, everyone. A tall bear with rosy cheeks and honey golden fur stepped beside her. His belly, ears, and palms were a lighter cream color. I'm sure you all remember Goldie, Viola said. The golden bear waved directly at the screen. Rose! Next came a pink teddy bear with pastel fur, a cream-tan snout, and 2 matching bows at the base of her ears. A white Peter Pan-style collar sat neatly around her neck. She smiled and waved. And lastly, Blippo! A bear with purple fur appeared, his belly, snout, and inner ears tan. Bright pink circles sat on his cheeks. Unlike the others, his fur was decorated with colorful shapes. An orange star on his right arm, a pink star and teal flower across his torso and leg, and a pink heart on his left leg. A large, polished chocolate-brown booty rested under his chin. He waved too. These are my friends, Viola said. And since you and I are friends, that means they're your friends too. The 3 bears clapped and cheered. Jaylen rushed to the player and tried to eject the DVD. Nothing happened. This is ridiculous, he muttered. He turned toward his door, planning to grab a screwdriver and force the player open. Just as his hand touched the knob, a sharp feminine voice cut through the room. Get back here. Jaylen froze. He turned around. Viola was still smiling on the screen, speaking cheerfully to the unseen audience, just like she always did. Heart pounding, Jaylen hurried out, grabbed a screwdriver, and rushed back into his room. The TV was off. The DVDs sat neatly on his dresser instead of in the trash can, where he could have sworn he had left them. He pressed the eject button. The player hummed, but nothing came out. Confused and exhausted, Jaylen convinced himself he was overtired. Hallucinating. His mind playing tricks on him. Even so, it took a long time before sleep finally came. Tomorrow was Sunday, so neither Jaylen nor Serenity had work. The moment he woke up, Jaylen grabbed the DVD cases and rushed over to Serenity's house. So let me get this straight, Serenity said as she looked over the cases. These DVDs showed up out of nowhere one day, just happened to be Viola and Friends, and then played by themselves on your TV, even after you threw them away? Correct, Jaylen said. You're sure that last part wasn't a dream? You're sure you actually threw them away? I don't even know anymore, Jaylen admitted. Look, I don't believe in ghosts or anything, but it feels like this was meant to tell me something. Like someone's trying to communicate with me? Maybe Darren. This was the last thing he watched before he disappeared. Serenity thought for a moment. It's possible, but I don't know, Jaylen. We both know how desperate you are for answers. This could just be your mind trying to cope. And didn't you always say you'd find him alive? Not as a spirit or anything like that? Jaylen looked down. I know I'm usually optimistic, but even I have doubts sometimes. Don't lose hope, Serenity said gently. That's what you always tell me. I learned that from you. Then I must be a good teacher, Jaylen said, smirking. It's usually hard to teach your hard-headed ass anything. She laughed, then hesitated. By the way, you're really gonna call me crazy when I tell you this, but I swear it sounded like Viola spoke directly to me. Serenity raised an eyebrow. Okay, that part? You were definitely hallucinating. Let's just try it on your TV, Jaylen said. He hooked the player up to the living room TV and slid a disc inside. The menu screen for Viola and Friends appeared. Wow, Serenity said. That's nostalgic. I haven't seen this in years. They stopped airing it, and it's not even on streaming. Yeah, Jaylen said. Probably better for my mom's mental health anyway. She was terrified of this show. Same with my aunties and my grandma. Nobody in my family likes talking about it. I remember, Serenity said. She'd make us change the channel immediately. She was genuinely scared. Always thought that was weird. Jaylen hit play. Welcome to Viola and Friends. Viola said brightly. I'm Viola, and this is Blippo. The purple bear waved. Hello, friends, he said in a deep, jolly voice. Today we have a very special guest, Viola continued. Rose and Goldie will be delighted to hear that, Blippo said. Don't be shy, special guest. Come on out. The camera slowly zoomed in on a tree in the background. A young boy peeked out from behind it. Then the TV abruptly switched to HDMI mode. Serenity shot to her feet. Wait, who was that kid? He almost looked like... There's no way, Jaylen said quickly. Let's just get it working again. He ejected the disc and put it back in. Nothing happened. Try another one, Serenity suggested. Jaylen grabbed a different scratch disc and inserted it. Still nothing. Something's wrong, Jaylen said, his voice shaking slightly. Serenity. What if that was Darren? Hope flickered in his eyes. But if it really was him, Serenity said carefully, then what do we do next? We're not paranormal experts. We'll figure it out, Jaylen said. This might be our first real clue. The first step toward finding out what actually happened to my brother. Serenity exhaled. All this stress is making me hungry. Let's go grab something to eat. They left the house together. On their way to the store, a man stepped into their path. It was the same man in the suit and hat Jaylen had seen days earlier. Hello, the man said calmly. I'm under the impression that DVD cases were recently delivered to your home. So you were watching me, Jaylen said. I remember you. Yes, the man replied. And for good reason. We need to talk. This is serious. How do we know we can trust you? Serenity snapped. You just showed up out of nowhere and started stalking him. Listen to what I have to say, the man said. You'd be doing all of us a huge favor. Your lives could be in danger. Jaylen and Serenity exchanged a look. Fine, Jaylen said. Good, the man nodded. We can talk at the diner you two ate at the other day. He even knows that? Serenity muttered. The three of them headed back to the restaurant and slid into a booth. The waitress came by, took their orders, and walked away. As soon as she was out of earshot, Jaylen leaned forward. So who are you? He asked. Why have you been watching me? And what do you know about Darren and that show? The man glanced around the diner, then leaned in closer. You can call me Simon. I've been investigating the show, and the DVD cases you've been carrying around. Somehow, they always slip through my grasp. I think she knows I'm after them. She? Serenity asked. Viola. Serenity frowned. What are you talking about? Investigating what, exactly? You better not turn out to be some sort of scam artist trying to take advantage of his grief. Keep your voices down, Simon said quietly. I'm about to explain everything. First and foremost, that show is not normal. Do either of you know the company that created it? Jaylen and Serenity both shook their heads. The company was called Everplay Entertainment, Simon continued. It was founded by Mark Hansen and Trey Phillips. One day, Trey Phillips mysteriously went missing. That's when things started to get strange. Not long after, the actress who played Viola, Selena Braxton, vanished as well. Jaylen felt his stomach tighten. Mark Hansen publicly mourned both of them, Simon said. He called Trey his brother and Selena, a beloved performer who touched the hearts of millions of children. He claimed there were unreleased projects they'd worked on before the tragedies and announced more seasons of the show, at least until Viola could be recast. Serenity leaned in. But that never happened. No, Simon said. Instead, reports started coming in. Children going missing. Almost always after watching Viola and Friends. Conspiracy theories exploded. People accused the company of hiding something. Cover-ups followed. What did Hansen say? Jaylen asked. He denied everything, Simon replied. Claimed the show only encouraged positivity and good choices. Said it might inspire imagination, maybe even rebellion, but nothing dangerous. And people believed him? Serenity asked. Some did, Simon said. Others didn't. And those people disappeared. Jaylen's hands tightened around the edge of the table. So you're saying this company had something to do with my brother going missing? Yes, Simon said slowly. And no. Jaylen and Serenity exchanged confused looks. One day, the show just stopped airing, Simon went on. Everplay shut down. No press release, no news coverage, nothing. Every employee vanished. And according to everything I could find, no official investigation was ever launched. That's insane, Jaylen said. But what does that have to do with the DVDs? With Darren? Simon didn't hesitate. The tapes are alive, and they took your brother, along with dozens of other children, and trapped them inside that twisted show. Silence settled over the booth. Serenity finally spoke. So it was paranormal, like we thought. Yes, Simon said. And we'll understand much more once we visit the old studio ourselves. But before that, there's someone else nearby we need to speak to. Jaylen nodded immediately. Fine. Let's make it quick. I want my brother back, as soon as possible. Serenity placed a hand on his shoulder, squeezing gently. All this time, all this work, it's finally leading somewhere. We're getting him back. They knocked on the door of a woman who lived just around the corner. After a moment, the door creaked open. Hello, can I help you? She asked cautiously. Hello, ma'am, Simon said gently. I heard about what happened to your daughter, and I believe we can help. The woman studied them for a moment, then opened the door wider. Come in. She led them inside and offered them seats at the kitchen table. Can you tell us exactly what you saw? Simon asked. Every detail matters. Yes, the woman said, folding her hands tightly. My daughter somehow got her hands on some DVDs. God only knows where they came from. Jaylen reached into his bag and pulled out the cases. Like these? The woman jumped up from her chair. Get those out of my house, she screamed. Simon quickly raised a calming hand. Please don't be afraid, ma'am. They won't cause any harm while we're here. She hesitated, then slowly sat back down. So you did have these tapes in your possession? Simon asked. Yes, she whispered. My daughter watched that show religiously, but then she started acting strange. It was like the show was talking to her. Like they were having a conversation. Her voice broke. I went to check on her because she suddenly went quiet. When I got upstairs, she was gone. Tears streamed down her face. But that wasn't the worst part. There was something hanging in the corner of the ceiling in my baby's room. I collapsed to the floor, and that thing, it went straight through the TV screen. What the hell? Jaylen muttered. What did the creature look like? Serenity asked carefully. It was tall, the woman said, wiping her eyes. Naked. And it looked like the girl from the show. Simon lowered his gaze, deep in thought. This isn't good. That means she can physically manifest in the real world. Jaylen's heart pounded. Simon, that wasn't you watching us in the forest, was it? No, Simon replied. I never followed you there. Jaylen began to tremble. I saw something in the woods. I couldn't fully make it out, but it fits her description. It had to be Viola. Watching me. Because I had the DVDs. He paused. But why did the DVDs come to me? That's what we're going to find out, Simon said. We're heading to the studio. Simon's phone rang. He stepped aside to answer it. Hello? Yes. I see. His tone shifted. Something important just came up. We'll have to go to the studio tomorrow at 6. I'll have everything we need prepared. Jaylen and Serenity nodded. I'm coming with you, the woman said suddenly. I'm not sitting around while my baby needs me. Ma'am, Simon said carefully. This could be dangerous. You need to stay safe. You say that? She snapped. But you're bringing these two with you. I'll take my chances. Simon sighed. Fair enough. You're coming. After some more discussion, Simon dropped Jaylen and Serenity off at home and went to handle whatever he needed to prepare for the next day. Chapter 3. Jaylen started to regret coming back home. What if trouble followed him here? What if whatever was happening with those DVDs brought danger to his mother's house? He'd be putting her at risk. That night, he stayed up later than he meant to, checking on her now and then until his body finally forced itself to sleep. When he woke up, it was later than expected, 5:30 p.m. The sky outside was already starting to darken. Jaylen threw on all black, a black hoodie, a black shirt, and black jeans. As soon as he walked downstairs, his phone rang. His manager. "Hello?" Jaylen answered. "Yes, Banks," the manager said. "I hope you haven't forgotten about your evening shift." Jaylen hesitated. "Something came up, sir." "I won't make it." There was a pause. Then his manager's voice hardened. "Come on, man. You've already missed a lot of hours. You're late all the time. This is the last straw. I've given you too many chances. At this rate, you're going to get me in trouble. If you can't come in today, then don't bother showing up any other day." Jaylen swallowed. "I understand." The call ended. Jaylen's mother was still home. She'd overheard the entire thing. "What was that?" she asked. Jaylen turned toward her. "It was nothing." "Jaylen," she said sternly. "Do you remember how hard it was for you to find that job?" "I know, Mom," Jaylen replied, trying to keep his voice calm. "But it's not the end of the world. I'll find another one if I have to." "Jaylen, sweetheart." She stepped closer and placed her hands on his shoulders. "You need to let go of this charade. Your brother is gone. Let him rest in peace." "He isn't dead," Jaylen said, his tone sharp and serious. "He's out there. Please," his mother begged, "stop wasting your life on this. Go to college. Do something with yourself. Be great. You just turned 23. Your father wouldn't want this. Darren wouldn't want this." Jaylen snapped. "I don't care," he shouted, louder than he meant to. "I could give a damn about this job or college. I'm not giving up on him. Not like you, not like the rest of the family, not like anybody." His voice lowered, but his eyes stayed intense. "Not until he's found and brought back." "I never," his mother started, but Jaylen cut her off. "I'm going with Serenity and someone else. She's the only one who actually believes me." He walked out, closing the door behind him. Jaylen waited outside until Simon pulled up. Serenity was already in the car, and so was the woman from earlier. Simon must have picked her up first. "All right," Simon said. "We're all set. Everything you need should already be in the back." Jaylen and Serenity looked through the supplies. Flashlights, lighters, crowbars, drills, and hammers. "Jesus," Jaylen muttered. "We really need all of this?" "I don't even know how to use a drill," Serenity said. Simon nodded. "Don't worry. I'll show you when we get there. It never hurts to be overly prepared." "That's how I see it." "I guess," Serenity said. Jaylen glanced at the woman. "By the way, Serenity and I never got your name, ma'am. Do you mind telling us?" "It's Melissa," she said, forcing a small smile. "Mine's Jaylen," he replied. "And you already know Serenity." They arrived at the studio. The area was dead quiet, except for the sound of crickets. The building sat there like a shadow, half swallowed by the dark. Simon looked back at them. "All right. I told you to wear all black for a reason. We'll blend in if anyone's around." "Someone's around?" Jaylen asked. Simon nodded. "This building is still privately owned. Sometimes hired guards come by to check the place." "All that for an abandoned building?" Jaylen said. Simon's expression tightened. "They're keeping this place for a reason, but it's almost like the owners are too afraid to go inside themselves." Jaylen felt a chill crawl up his spine. "We're going to find out why," Simon continued, "and we're going to use that information to bring Darren and Melissa's daughter back from that unearthly show." He looked at them. "Now follow me." Simon led them to a chain-link fence on the left side of the building. He pulled out bolt cutters and snipped an opening just big enough for them to squeeze through. One by one, they crawled in. They approached a locked door. Simon reached into his bag and pulled out lockpicks. After a minute of quiet clicking, the lock finally popped. "And we're in," Simon said. "About time," Jaylen muttered. "Lead the way, boss man," Serenity said. They stepped inside. Melissa immediately scrunched her nose. "This place is messing with my allergies," she said, trying not to sneeze. "Yeah," Jaylen agreed. "This place is dusty as hell." "Just push through it," Simon said. "If we hurry and get the answers we need, we'll be out of here in no time. Follow me." They raised their flashlights, beams cutting through the darkness, and moved deeper into the building. The walls were covered in artwork of the show's main cast. Smiling faces. Bright colors. That same cheerful theme stretched across the entire hallway, though some of it had started to peel and rot with time. The group moved deeper into the building until they reached what looked like the writer's room. The door was unlocked. They stepped inside and began searching. "Anyone find anything yet?" Simon asked. "No," everyone replied. "Wait," Melissa said, crouching near a desk. "I found a journal." Simon walked over and took it from her. Let me see. The name Maria Taylor was written inside. He flipped through the pages, scanning quickly. Most of this is just filler. He paused. No, wait, he read aloud. It's strange. I don't remember us having this many episodes stored in the vault before the actress left. That poor girl, she didn't deserve how the directors and higher-ups treated her. She's stronger than most for staying as long as she did. Simon flipped a few more pages, then stopped. That's all that stands out, he said. Let's check the founder's office. They all nodded and moved on. The office door was locked, but Simon made quick work of it. A few clicks later, they were in. Simon walked straight to the desk and picked up a letter addressed to Maria Taylor. As he read it, his expression darkened. What is it? Serenity asked. Simon folded the letter slowly. Roger Stone wrote this. He said he made a disturbing discovery about the studio. Asked her to meet him somewhere private after work. And the letter's sitting here in Hanson's office, Jaylen said quietly. Simon nodded. Which means she probably never got it. A heavy silence filled the room. They spread out and searched. Hey, Serenity called. Jaylen, Simon, help me move this bookshelf. The two of them pushed it aside carefully. Behind it was a hidden doorway. They all stared at it. Yeah, Jaylen muttered. That's not suspicious at all. Simon stepped forward. This is where we get answers. They went in. The hidden room was packed with DVD cases, books, and scattered papers covered in strange writing. Melissa picked up a document labeled Report. Her voice shook as she read. Targets have all been acquired. Our beloved actress, Selena Braxton, who thought she could walk out on us. And two of our writers, Maria Taylor and Roger Stone, who conspired to expose our work. Ms. Braxton's family is becoming a problem. Too persistent. We will send workers to deter them. Serenity's face twisted. Did they do something to these people? I don't doubt it, Simon said. He pointed to the floor. A large symbol was carved into it, surrounded by dark, dried bloodstains. Something ritualistic happened here, he said. Everyone, check the shelves. There has to be more. They each grabbed a book. After a moment, Simon froze. Here, he said. This confirms it. My worst fear. What? Jaylen asked. Simon looked up. The characters in the show, they're not just characters. They might be real people. Missing people. Transformed somehow. Jaylen's stomach dropped. But how? Serenity asked. That's the problem, Simon said. There's a missing book. None of these explain the process. They could have been killed. Or something worse. Jaylen's expression hardened. I see that look, Simon said. It's still just a theory. Don't jump to conclusions yet. Melissa pulled open a folder stuffed with loose papers, her fingers trembling slightly as she flipped through them. Look at this, she said. There's more details about what's been happening here. She handed the papers to Simon. He scanned them, then began reading aloud, his voice uneasy. Subjects were successfully integrated into the main cast, just as one of the co-founders were, though I don't think purple suits him all that much. Subjects occasionally regain fragments of their memories, but professionals will be sent in to condition them. Simon paused, frowning, then continued. They will require a power source to sustain this artificial realm, which we will now refer to as the show setting. Younger humans may be the perfect candidates, increasing the number of potential cast members, and I know just the way to make that happen. His grip on the page tightened slightly. And Viola will do it for us. Gerald Alvaro. A brief silence settled over the group. Simon swallowed and flipped to the next page. Subject A, the host, left the show without authorization and attempted to escape the facility. There were only a few casualties. She was successfully contained with the assistance of our special friends, you could say. His voice grew quieter. Subject will undergo the most painful reconditioning imaginable as punishment. The fool hasn't realized its mortal body has already perished and was thoroughly disposed of in order to bring it to its current state. Serenity let out a shaky breath. Simon didn't stop. He turned to the next note, almost like he needed to get through it. This is a serious matter. We need to arrange a meeting with the CEO immediately. A strange presence has attached itself to the show. It's corrupting the others, and they barely follow our commands whenever it's involved. This could become a major threat if not handled quickly. Gerald Alvaro. He lowered the papers. Serenity crossed her arms, unease written all over her face. Sounds like we're messing with something way bigger than we thought. That may be true, Simon said, but we don't know how much time we have left to save Melissa's daughter or Jaylen's brother. He looked back down at the notes. I read that there's a limit. Once a kid is in the show too long, they fully merge with it. Their bodies don't come back. The room felt colder. We need to move, Fast. Save whoever we still can. Jaylen stared at the floor, his jaw tight. Darren, he muttered under his breath. Please, let me make it in time. Chapter 4. A small tape recorder sat tucked between dusty books on a shelf, almost hidden. Melissa noticed it first. What is that? Simon stepped closer, picking it up carefully. Looks like someone left a message. He hesitated for a second, then pressed play. The tape crackled to life. If anyone is hearing this. My name is Mario Alcina. And I have a confession. The room went still. I couldn't stand to watch them live like that anymore. I quit. I was going to leave town, go to the authorities, tell them everything we did. A faint static hiss crept in and out of the recording, but then I got word all my coworkers disappeared. No trace. Just gone. Simon's expression darkened. I came back. The authorities found nothing, so I started investigating on my own. And now, kids are still going missing. Even with no staff here. A pause. Breathing. Uneven. That can only mean one thing. He's trying to get free. Serenity shifted uncomfortably. There were mentions of something else here before all of this. It has to be him. The tape warbled slightly, like it didn't want to keep going. I'm leaving this as a warning. Stay away from this place. Protect your children from these people. Another pause. And if you find those DVDs, burn them. That should end their suffering. All of it. The tape clicked. Silence. For a moment, no one spoke. Simon stared at the recorder, something heavy settling behind his eyes. Another investigator, he said quietly. Mario was my favorite coworker. Everyone turned to him. You worked here? Jaylen and Serenity said at the same time, disbelief cutting through the air. Simon exhaled slowly. Yeah. I did. He looked around the room, like it had changed now that the truth was out. I was one of the oblivious ones. Just another worker who didn't ask questions. He paused. Mr. Phillips, he was a good man. We all thought so. His jaw tightened. But I guess you can't say the same about his childhood friend. Hansen. The name felt sour in his mouth. Seems like they didn't see eye to eye. Not when Hansen decided the show should run on suffering, on turning all of this into profit. Melissa shook her head. That's horrible. It is, Simon said. He set the tape recorder back down, more carefully this time. Then his tone hardened, something resolute replacing the hesitation. But we're not letting it continue. Jaylen, the DVDs usually go after children, Simon said, thinking it through. But for some reason, that pattern stopped with you. Jaylen frowned. What if maybe Darren had something to do with it? Like some kind of influence? Simon's eyes lit up slightly. Exactly. He stepped closer, more focused now. If Darren did something once, then maybe he can do it again. If we can find a way to reach him, we might be able to use that to help him escape. And maybe even the others too. Jaylen nodded, determination creeping into his expression. Let's try it. They gathered around the TV. Jaylen reached out and pressed play. Static filled the screen. No cheerful intro. No music. Just silence. Then Viola appeared. But this time, she looked terrified. Her smile was gone. What did you do with Darren? Jaylen shouted. Viola glanced around nervously. Her voice shook. I can't tell you. The screen flashed white. A hand burst out and grabbed Jaylen. Jaylen! Serenity screamed, grabbing onto him. The force dragged him forward. Hold on, she cried. Melissa grabbed Serenity. I've got you. Simon grabbed Melissa. But it wasn't enough. The pull was too strong. One by one, they were dragged screaming into the screen. And then, silence. Jaylen's eyes snapped open. He shot to his feet instantly. Around him, the others did the same, scrambling up and trying to get their bearings. They looked around. They were in a forest. At first glance, it looked just like the one from Viola and Friends. The same style, the same shapes. But something was wrong. Everything was darker. Quieter. The trees were decaying, their bark rotting and splitting. Only patches of grass were still alive. And some of the trees, they had faces. Faces that Simon found oddly familiar. Twisted, carved into the trunks, frozen in expressions of agony. Serenity swallowed. Are we? In the show? Jaylen finished. Yeah, I think we are. Simon looked around carefully. That gets us closer to the kids, he said. But now we've got a new problem. We have to survive this place too. Melissa pointed ahead. I think I see something. In the distance, a house stood between the trees. Let's check it out, Simon said. Serenity hesitated. What if it's a trap? Simon gave a small shrug. We're already trapped. We don't have much of a choice. Just stay close. They approached the house. And Jaylen froze. That's my house, he said. But it wasn't right. It looked like his home. Twisted. Off. like something had tried to copy it from memory and got details wrong. "Why is it here?" he whispered. "Only one way to find out," Simon said. Jaylen slowly pushed the door open. Inside, everything felt wrong. The layout was familiar, but the furniture was different. Colors slightly off. Shapes distorted. "I don't understand," Jaylen muttered. "Is she messing with me?" Then he saw it. A golden knife set, sitting beside a birthday card. His stomach dropped. "That's my mom's," he said quietly. He picked up the card and opened it. "Happy birthday, Catherine. I know how much you love to cook. You basically taught me everything I know. This is a knife set made of real gold." "Just kidding. Real gold is too soft for cutting, silly. But I really hope you like it. These were expensive. I'm leaving this here since I'll be busy at Everplay Studios. I'll call once I'm free. Selena." Jaylen's hands trembled. "What is this?" Simon stepped closer and read over his shoulder. His expression shifted. "Jaylen, this might actually explain something. I didn't get the chance to fully look into Selena's family, but this could mean." The walls began to shift. Black mass spread across them like ink swallowing paper. "What's happening?" Serenity shouted. The ground gave way beneath them. They fell. Jaylen hit the ground hard. When he opened his eyes again, he was alone. A dark hallway stretched in front of him. At the end stood a single door. Then, a deep, distorted laugh echoed through the space. Something cracked, like bones stretching. Jaylen slowly turned around. It was her. The twisted version of Viola stood behind him. It was tall, its limbs stretched unnaturally long, ending in thin, jagged fingers that looked more like claws than hands. Its eyes were nothing but hollow pits of black, and its mouth hung open in a wide, empty grin just as dark. It looked like it was severely starved. Jaylen didn't hesitate. He ran. The creature let out a low, groaning sound as it chased him, its movements jerky and unnatural. The hallway seemed to stretch as he sprinted toward the door. He reached it, burst through, and slammed it shut behind him. He found himself in a dark dressing room. Clothing racks filled the space, packed tightly together like a maze. Dresses hung in rows, brushing against each other. Mirrors lined the walls. Jaylen ducked behind a rack, trying to steady his breathing. The door behind him slammed open. The creature stepped inside. It let out that same awful groaning noise, dragging its limbs as it searched. Jaylen's heart pounded so loud he was sure it could hear it. He moved slowly, weaving deeper into the racks. Then, it stopped. Jaylen froze. The creature stood in front of a mirror. For a moment, it stared at its reflection, like it had never seen itself before. Then it let out a violent, ear-piercing roar, and smashed the mirror. Glass shattered everywhere. But it wasn't just looking at itself. It had seen him. The creature lunged, tearing through racks and clothes, ripping everything apart to get to him. Jaylen bolted. He sprinted through the maze, pushing past hanging clothes, knocking racks aside. At the far end, a glowing door-shaped portal appeared. Jaylen didn't slow down. He threw himself toward it with everything he had. The creature's claws nearly caught his leg, only grazing it, and he dove through. Chapter 5. Simon landed hard and quickly pushed himself up. He looked around. A dirty, run-down playhouse surrounded him. The colors were faded, the plastic cracked, and everything smelled old, rotten. Footsteps echoed nearby, heavy, slow, coming closer. Simon moved fast, scanning for somewhere to hide. Tunnels twisted through the structure, with slides connecting different sections. A ball pit sat nearby, dark, the plastic balls dulled and grimy. He dove into it. The footsteps stopped. Simon barely breathed. Then it appeared. Blippo. But not the way it was supposed to be. This version was monstrous. Its eyes were completely black, no pupils. Its mouth stretched wide, filled with uneven, jagged teeth. Its purple fur clung to a body that looked wrong. Flesh pushed through in places, and small, skull-like faces seemed embedded in its skin, twitching slightly. It sniffed the air, then slowly turned away. Simon didn't wait. He climbed out of the ball pit as quietly as possible and slipped toward one of the tunnels. Just as he crawled inside, Blippo turned back. It saw him. A distorted roar ripped through the playhouse. Simon crawled as fast as he could, the tight plastic tunnel scraping against him as Blippo lunged in after him, its limbs bending unnaturally to fit. Left. Right. Another turn. Dead ends forced him to keep changing direction. Then, the tunnel sloped downward. A slide. Simon didn't hesitate. He let himself drop, sliding down hard and fast. At the bottom, a door. He burst through it and collided straight into Melissa. They both stumbled. "I'm sorry, Melissa, are you okay?" Simon asked quickly. "I'm fine," she said, catching her breath. "Have you seen Jaylen or Serenity?" "No," Simon replied. "I haven't." Melissa looked shaken. "I hope they're okay." "Me too." A loud slam echoed from the next room. Simon's expression hardened. Come on. We need to hide. They ducked behind a stack of giant letter blocks. Heavy footsteps approached. Goldie stepped into the room. He was just as horrifying. His grin stretched wide, filled with sharp, even teeth. His yellow fur was filthy, matted with grime, and patches of dark, rotting flesh showed through. His black, pupilless eyes scanned the room as he breathed heavily. He paused, then slowly turned and walked back the way he came. Melissa exhaled shakily. What the hell is that thing? Simon kept his voice low. Looks like the rest of the cast turned into monsters too. And they're hunting us. He peeked out. We need to move. Find Jaylen and Serenity. I'm right behind you, Melissa said. They slipped into the next area. It looked like some kind of learning section. Old drawings hung on peeling boards, crayons and markers scattered everywhere. A door sat to their left. Goldie was nearby, distracted, searching. Now, Simon whispered. They ran for it. But Melissa accidentally knocked over a small stool. A box of coloring pencils spilled across the floor. Every single one was black. Goldie snapped toward them instantly. Locked eyes. Crap, Simon muttered, fumbling with the door handle. It wouldn't turn. Goldie charged. Fast. Too fast. The door finally gave. Simon yanked it open and pulled Melissa inside just as Goldie reached them. They slammed the door shut and shoved heavy letter blocks against it. Goldie hit the other side hard. The door shook. That won't hold forever, Simon said. Then let's move, Melissa replied. They ran down the hallway and froze. Serenity was there, suspended in the air. Rose had her by the neck. The pink bear looked just as twisted. Her bows torn, her face stretched into something unnatural, her teeth sharp as blades. Her eyes, like the others, were black, but she possessed distinct pink, O-shaped circles that formed her pupils. She leaned in, ready to bite. Simon didn't hesitate. He pulled out his taser, the only one he still had, and fired. Electricity cracked through Rose's body. She shrieked, her grip loosening. Melissa rushed forward and hurled one of the heavy blocks at her. It hit, not enough to hurt her badly, but enough. Rose dropped Serenity. Simon grabbed her immediately. Move! They ran. Down the hall. Toward a glowing door. Come on, Melissa! Simon shouted. She followed close behind, knocking over anything she could to slow the creatures down. Behind them, the barricaded door exploded open. Goldie burst through. Rose recovered and joined him. Both of them charged. The ground shook with their footsteps. Faster! Simon yelled. They reached the glowing doorway and jumped through. They steadied themselves. Serenity suddenly started screaming, panic spilling out all at once. Serenity, it's okay. Melissa rushed to her, pulling her into a tight hug. We made it. We're safe. We've got you. Serenity's screams faded, but her breathing stayed uneven, shaky. I knew this was a bad idea, she muttered. The group finally took in their surroundings. This place looked different, better than the others. It resembled a giant tea party. Long tables stretched out in every direction, covered in teacups and plates, and children. At least 100 of them. All sitting still, all asleep. Jaylen stepped forward slowly. Then he saw him. Darren, sitting further ahead at one of the tables, completely still. Exactly the same as the day he disappeared. Jaylen's eyes filled with tears. I finally found you. Jaylen! Simon's voice snapped him out of it. Jaylen turned. Thank God you guys are okay. His eyes landed on Serenity. She looked worse than anyone. Shaken, pale, barely holding it together. Serenity, are you okay? She swallowed. Is Darren okay? Jaylen looked back at him. Yeah, I think so. Simon stepped forward. Let's not waste time. We need to wake him and the rest of these kids and get out of here. Fast. Jaylen nodded and rushed to Darren, gently shaking him. Darren, can you hear me? Wake up. It's me, your big brother. I came to save you. Darren stirred. Jaylen? Jaylen froze, then immediately pulled him into a hug. Yeah, it's me, he said, his voice breaking. It's been so long since I heard your voice. Tears streamed down his face. I thought I'd never see you again. He hugged him tighter. Darren hugged him back. I missed you too, he said softly. Then his tone shifted. But you shouldn't be here. Jaylen pulled back, confused. Of course I should. It's my job to protect you. I never stopped looking for you. I didn't care what anyone said. I knew you weren't gone. Darren looked worried. Darren, Serenity said quietly. She stepped forward and wrapped him in a hug. Serenity? You're here too? She nodded. I've been helping Jaylen this whole time. Darren's eyes watered, but he wiped them quickly. You've both gotten so big, he said. Then his voice turned serious. Listen, we don't have much time. The other kids are still asleep. We need to wake them up and get out of here. Simon stepped closer. What happens if we don't? Darren hesitated. Whenever any of us wakes up, she puts us back to sleep, he said. Some of us have been here long enough to start feeling what the monsters feel. Melissa frowned. What do you mean? Their emotions, Darren explained. When they're angry, when they're sad, we feel it too. A heavy silence fell. We tried to use that, he continued. Tried to escape over and over again. But we always got caught. So we had to wait for another chance. Simon exhaled. I'm sorry. That must have been torture. Darren shrugged slightly. After a while you get numb to it. Dina! Melissa suddenly shouted. She rushed to a nearby table and shook a young girl awake. The girl blinked slowly. Mommy? Melissa pulled her into a tight embrace. It's okay, sweetheart. I'm here. We're taking you home. Simon turned back to the group. All right, everyone, start waking the kids, he said. And have them help wake the others. We need to move before anything shows up. Jaylen nodded, determination hardening in his expression. And once we're out, he said, we burn every last one of those DVDs. Chapter 6. All of the kids were awake now. Darren looked around, tense. Good. There's a hidden doorway nearby that can get us out of the tea party area, he said. It leads to a dark room, and from there should be a door back to the real world. But it's hard to reach. They always catch us before we make it. Simon stepped forward. Not this time. We'll get all of you there. Darren nodded, though doubt still lingered in his eyes. I hope so. Then, a loud, piercing shriek tore through the air. Darren and several of the other kids immediately dropped to their knees, clutching their heads, screaming in pain. Jaylen rushed to him. Darren! What was that? Are you okay? Darren forced himself back up, breathing hard. The other kids looked terrified, some already crying. It's him, Darren said. Simon frowned. Him? The monsters fear Viola, Darren said, gripping his head. But they, and even Viola, are afraid of something else. His eyes widened. They're coming. Simon didn't hesitate. Then move. Darren, lead the way. Come on, everyone. Darren shouted. The group took off running, the children following close behind. They entered a dark forest, just like the one from before. Doorways sometimes appear here. Darren called out. The trees might slow them down. Branches scraped against them as they pushed forward. Then, an opening. There! Darren pointed. A faint glow flickered within it. This one might work. Go! They rushed through. They emerged into a pitch-black room. In the distance, a glowing doorway. Quick! Everyone through there! Darren shouted. Melissa turned to the group. We'll stay behind and hold them off if we have to. The children didn't need to be told twice. They sprinted toward the light, one after another disappearing through the exit. Only a handful remained. Then, they appeared. Viola, Goldie, Blippo, Rose, blocking the way they came from. Go! Simon shouted. Move! The last of the children rushed through the doorway. Jaylen grabbed Darren's arm. Come on! They all ran through. They stumbled out onto a dusty stage. Back in the real world. Everplay Studios. Children poured out of the television behind them, filling the room. Jaylen, Serenity, Melissa, and Simon stepped onto the stage to get a better view of the crowd. Darren and Dina stood close behind. Serenity looked around, stunned. This is going to be a crazy headline. Simon's expression darkened. About that, Melissa pointed suddenly. What's happening to them? Everyone turned. Most of the children were glowing. Soft blue particles drifted from their bodies, rising into the air like embers. Jaylen's stomach dropped. No, Simon looked down, grim. This is the part one was afraid of. Darren spoke quietly. When your soul merges too deeply with that world, you lose your physical body, he said. If you don't get out in time, you were never really alive in there to begin with. Silence. I tried to help as many kids as I could, Darren continued. But this was the best we could do. And it only worked because of all of you. Jaylen turned to him and froze. Darren was starting to glow too. Darren, Jaylen whispered. No, no, no. Dina and one other boy stood nearby, still normal, unaffected. Darren gave a small, sad smile. It's okay, he said gently. We're finally free. Jaylen shook his head, tears falling. No. I failed. I should have found you sooner. This is my fault. That's not true, one of the children called out. More voices followed. You saved us. We can finally rest because of you. Darren nodded. They're right. You came for me. You never gave up. He stepped closer. Do me a favor, okay? He said softly. Live your life. Don't spend it grieving me. I'll always be with you. Watching over you and Mom. Jaylen broke down, pulling him into a hug. I love you, Darren said. I'll see you in heaven. Jaylen held on tighter. I love you too. Yeah. I'll see you there. Darren's body dissolved into glowing particles. They drifted upward and disappeared. One by one, the other children did the same, hugging, crying, saying goodbye, until they were gone. Only Dina and the young boy remained. The room fell quiet. Jaylen dropped to his knees, overwhelmed. Serenity and Melissa moved to comfort him. Thank you, Jaylen whispered, though his voice was barely there. Simon looked toward the two remaining children. We need to figure out what to do with them, he said. This situation, it's complicated. Before anyone could respond, a television nearby crackled. The screen flickered. Then, a hand burst through. Viola began pulling herself out, her body twisting, stretching, contorting unnaturally as she forced her way into the room. Run! Simon shouted. Melissa grabbed Dina and the young boy's hands as they all took off, the kids screaming in terror. Behind them, Viola lunged. Her claws grazed Jaylen's arm, leaving fresh scratches. He winced but kept moving. Simon rushed ahead, tipping over a bookshelf to block the doorway. It slammed down hard. Come on, he said, pulling Jaylen back to his feet. They sprinted toward the studio exit. Behind them, the creature let out a furious, distorted shriek. It sounded weaker now, like something had been taken from it. Then, a loud crash echoed from deeper inside the building. They didn't look back. Just what the hell are you all doing in here? A guard stepped into their path, gun raised. This is private property. Wait, theirs, Serenity started. Save it, the guard cut her off. You're all coming with me. Nice and easy. We'll have a talk with the police. He motioned for them to move. Then, a scraping sound came from above. The ceiling cracked. Viola dropped down right behind the guard. Before he could react, her long fingers wrapped around his head, lifting him off the ground, thumbs pressing toward his eyes. The group didn't stay. They ran. The guard's screams echoed behind them, then suddenly stopped. They burst outside. Another guard spotted them. Hey, stop right there. Then he saw it. Viola charged out of the building. The guard fired, bullets hitting her chest and shoulder. But it didn't matter. She still reached him. They didn't look back. They piled into the car. Come on, Simon muttered, turning the key. Once, twice, 3 times. The engine roared to life. Go! Jaylen yelled. Simon slammed the gas. They sped off. But suddenly, a sharp hand punched through the roof of the car, right between Jaylen and Simon. Everyone screamed. Shake it off! Serenity shouted. Simon gritted his teeth, then slammed the brakes. The sudden stop launched the creature forward, ripping it off the car. It hit the road hard. Simon didn't hesitate. He hit the gas again and ran it over. He didn't stop driving. They pulled up to Simon's house. Everyone inside, he said quickly. We're ending this now. We burn the discs here. There's no fireplace, he added, moving fast. But I've got a pot big enough for all of them. I'll barricade the door, Jaylen said. Me too, Melissa added. Good. Hurry upstairs when you're done. Jaylen and Melissa shoved furniture against the doors and windows, blocking whatever they could. Then they rushed upstairs. Simon and Serenity had already set up a fire in a large metal pot. The flames flickered, ready. Jaylen stepped forward, holding the DVDs. It's time, he said quietly. To end this for good, Simon finished. Yeah, the others agreed. Then, a sound. Scraping. Crawling. Inside the house. They all froze. The window shattered. Viola forced her way inside, her body twisting unnaturally as she pulled herself through. Simon stepped in front of everyone. Burn them! The creature struck him, sending him crashing into the wall. Simon! Jaylen shouted. Viola grabbed Melissa, lifting her off the ground, clutching her. Jaylen didn't hesitate. He dumped every single disc into the fire. The flames roared as they caught. Viola froze, then screamed. A horrible, inhuman sound as her body began to twist and break apart. She dropped Melissa, stumbling backward, writhing in pain. Step by step, she retreated and fell back out the window. Gone. Silence. Serenity rushed to Melissa. Are you okay? Melissa coughed, nodding. Yeah, I'm okay. Jaylen ran to the window, looking out. Nothing, no sign of her. He turned back. Simon was sitting up, holding his head. Simon, you good? Serenity asked. They all gathered around him. I'll live, he said with a small wince. Don't think I've got a concussion. He stood up slowly, looking at the fire. I think we did it. He exhaled. Their souls should be free now. A pause. Rest easy, Mr. Phillips, all the four of you. The tension finally broke. They laughed. They cried. They hugged each other tightly. It was over. They stepped outside together. I'll drop you all home, Simon said. I've got everything I need for my case. Jaylen nodded, then glanced at the young boy. What about him? I'll help find his parents, Simon said, though some people I know might want to talk to him first. Jaylen frowned slightly. I see. Simon handed them a number. If anything strange ever happens again, call this. He paused. And, my name isn't actually Simon, not legally. They looked at him. If someone answers, tell them you're looking for Tyrell Moore. Melissa smiled. Well, thank you. Tyrell. He gave a small grin. I actually prefer Simon, Ms. Melissa. Serenity laughed softly. Can we go home now? Yeah, he said. Let's go. He dropped Melissa and Dina off first. Then finally, Jaylen and Serenity. They stepped out of the car. Hey, Simon said before they left. One last thing. They turned back. Don't tell anyone about what you saw, please. Serenity gave a small shrug. Not like anyone would believe us anyway. Simon nodded, rolled up his window, and drove off. Serenity watched the car disappear. He doesn't seem like a normal detective, she said. We probably should have asked more about what he actually does. Jaylen shook his head. If he could have told us, he would have. He took a breath. I need to talk to my mom. I'll call you later. Okay, Serenity said softly. They hugged each other tightly, then went their separate ways. Jaylen stepped into the house. His mom was already there, pacing. The moment she saw him, she rushed forward and pulled him into a tight hug. Where have you been? She asked, her voice shaking. Then she noticed his arm. The scratches. She pulled back, eyes wide. What happened to you? Jaylen took a breath. Mom, I went to the studio. Her expression changed instantly. What? She whispered. I went to Everplay Entertainment. She stepped back like she'd been burned. Why would you do that? She said, fear creeping into her voice. Jaylen looked at her, steady. Mom, I saved him. She froze. He was trapped, Jaylen continued. But he's free now. I know who took him. I know what took him. Jaylen, you don't understand, she said quickly. That place is dangerous. Mom, no, she cut her off, shaking her head. You don't understand. These people, they're not something you mess with. Her voice began to crack. I never told you or Darren about my sister. Jaylen blinked. What? Tears filled her eyes. You never knew her, she said. The family. We were too scared to even say her name. Or the company's name. We thought if we did, we'd put all of you in danger. Jaylen stood still, listening. She told us things, his mom continued. Before she disappeared. Things about that company. Things that didn't make sense. She said she was gonna quit, but we never saw her again after that. Her hands trembled. We demanded answers. And they threatened us. Jaylen's chest tightened. They told us if we didn't stay quiet, something would happen. To us. To our children. Her voice broke completely. So when Darren disappeared, she whispered, tears falling, I had no choice but to sit there and do nothing. Because I was trying to protect the only son I had left. Mom, Jaylen said softly. That's why I never let you watch that show, she continued. Not just to protect you, but because it reminded me of everything I lost. Silence filled the room. Everything clicked. All the fear, all the secrecy, all the pain. Jaylen didn't know what to say. So he stepped forward and hugged her tightly. I'm sorry, he whispered. Then his voice hardened, quiet but certain. I won't let anything like that happen again. He held on to her. Like if he let go, something else might take her too. That was a powerful and heavy conclusion to Jaylen's journey. Now that the truth is out and Darren's soul is free, would you like me to help you brainstorm an epilogue or perhaps a sequel idea involving Tyrell Moore's mysterious organization?